For the first time, criminal charges have been filed against some of the people responsible for the Flint water crisis. Now, if you haven't been following over the past year, it had to do with both lead and other contaminants being introduced into the Flint water supply as a result of some fairly callous cost cutting. Flint's water was switched from the Detroit system, where they'd been purchasing water previously, to sourcing from the Flint River in April of 2014. After the failure to use corrosion control chemicals that should have prevented lead and other contaminants, by the way, from leaching into the city's drinking water, residents began reporting a number of health issues. And if you saw video at the time, people would draw a glass of water from the tap that would be brown. And then you'd see the politicians talking about it. Oh no, there's nothing going on. There's nothing wrong at all. And if we could bring this up, you're going to see the headline grabber out of this. This is not the only health problem that resulted from the contamination of the water in Flint, but the lead poisoning is perhaps one of the scariest. Now, early on the left side of that graph, you see the efforts nationally and locally to lower exposure to lead, which causes it's almost impossible to overstate how damaging it is, especially to young people. And then you see it start to go back up again. And especially the above 10 there. That's the most harmful, especially for young people. And that starts to go up because they're getting water from the Flint River there. And thankfully, as a side note, by the way, it started to clue us into how many different communities around the country have these sorts of problems. So now there are charges. The government waited forever to acknowledge that it was going on, to do anything to fix the problem, including buying filters for the people of Flint. And now we finally have charges of 3 individuals. Michael Glasgow, a Flint Utilities administrator, will be charged with tampering with evidence and willful neglect of office. He oversaw a water testing regimen that sampled homes mostly without lead pipes and told the EPA they were following the regulation, when the regulation requires that you sample only from homes that have lead pipes. Obviously, if you're choosing ones that don't have lead pipes, you're not going to find a lot of lead in that home, unfortunately. Michael Prysby and Stephen Bush both face the same 6 counts, felony charges of misconduct in office for allegedly misleading EPA officials, conspiracy to tamper with evidence, and tampering with evidence as well. Also, 2 misdemeanors for violating the state's Safe Water Drinking Act, which, by the way, 1 year and or $5,000 for each day of the violation for each count. So that's significant in addition to the other charges. Prysby also faces a felony charge of misconduct in office for giving Flint's water treatment plant a permit, knowing that it wasn't going to provide clean drinking water, which could result in 5 years and or $10,000. So when you add all that up, I mean, if they actually, if these charges stick, that is a significant fine, significant time in jail. Although, as we're going to get to, this is just 3 people and not at the highest levels. By the way, Prysby and Bush, the 2 individuals at the end that I mentioned, are the 2 accused of instructing Glasgow to drop homes with high lead levels from Flint's report to the EPA. So this is not simply not recognizing the problem or not doing enough to stop it. This is deliberately misleading the authorities from being able to recognize it and rectify it, which is leading in the short term and the long term to harm to countless thousands of residents, especially children of Flint, from exposure to lead and other contaminants.
So I'm glad that these charges were brought, and I'm glad that finally there's some sort of accountability that has begun. But let's also give context here. So Michael Glasgow, the first guy that John mentioned, yes, he left out the homes that had lead pipes. That's obviously skews the results. But when you do that, you've got to recognize, oops, there might be poison in the water, and I'm making sure we don't find out. So that's pretty serious, right? Yeah. So, but to be fair to him, he didn't want to switch over the pipes in the first place. He said, quote, before they did the switch, he said, if water is distributed from this plant in the next couple of weeks, it will be against my direction. But his bosses told him, no, you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, when he did do it, he did a shoddy job of it. Now, but he had warned them, like, let's not do this, right? Now, 2 of his bosses are the other 2 guys charged, right? So super fair, good, right? But none of those guys made the actual decision.
Yeah.
The guys who made the decisions were the emergency managers and the state government. Now the state government, led by Rick Snyder, ironically turns around and goes, you see, the real problems were, quote, career civil servants. So not
and probably environmentalists.
Right. Not the guys who made the decisions, but the government, career civil servants. Conveniently, the people that Republicans had been attacking all along. But you're in charge of the government. You're the governor. You're in charge of those career civil servants. It's your job to make sure that they do a good job. Now, instead, what they did was Snyder said, okay, we've run out of money. Now, by the way, why did they run out of money and have to do these cost-saving measures? Because he gave billions of dollars in tax cuts to the rich and to corporations.
At a time when they were already having revenue problems in that area. Yeah.
So after you give away billions of dollars, then you go, oh, I don't have money for $2 million to Flint for the right kind of pipes. Make the change, make the change. The guy says, I can't make the change. I don't think this is the right thing to do. Make it, and otherwise there'll be consequences. And then the guy cuts corners. He shouldn't have, and he should file charges. But there should also be charges against the guy who put all that pressure on him to cut the corners, who made the wrong decision, who misdirected the money towards his friends and his donors, and took it away from the people of Flint.
Yeah, which, by the way, would help to stop this from happening in 100 other ways, not necessarily having to do with lead or with water, but you see this sort of cost cutting around the country. And thankfully, thanks to Flint, one of the silver linings is, as I alluded to earlier, we found out that there are a lot of areas with unacceptably high levels of lead in the water, in some cases far higher than in Flint. And you get that because you don't care about the area. And this is one small illustration that undercuts the entire conservative argument about how people end up where they end up in their lives. They will say to the kids of Flint, use your goddamn bootstraps, okay? You don't need a handout from the government. You just need to just work hard, okay? Their brains are being permanently damaged by lead because you fucked them over and forced them to drink lead-contaminated water. So for the rest of their life, let's not acknowledge that they're going to be just a little bit behind in many cases because their fucking brain development has been irreparably harmed. And that's going to happen to many areas. Millions of Americans are going to grow up with that problem or similar problems, and there could be no acknowledgement to the fact that they're being held back. But if you ever do anything through government to help catch them up a little bit to the people who've been given all the advantages in the world, then that's what's wrong. You are a supporter of welfare, you're probably a socialist or a communist, and you need to be stopped from having any political power.
One last thing. If you're a lower level employee, whether you're in the government, you're in the military, okay, you're maybe even the CIA, or even at a regular job that you have, don't follow illegal orders. You know why? They're going to throw you out of the bus.
Yeah.
First of all, it's illegal. Okay. Second of all, it's immoral. Third of all, if anyone's going to pay a price, it's going to be you. It's not going to be your boss.
Yeah.
Your boss is going to be the first one to throw you under the bus. Oh, I didn't do it. Well, you put all the pressure in the world. You asked him to do it. You implied that he would be fired if he didn't do it, right? But I didn't press the button. Ha ha! You pressed the button, right? So don't press the button. Don't do things you know are illegal and immoral. You're the only one who's going to wind up under a bus.
Yeah, and one final point I want to make, in an investigation that was conducted last year, they were not able, in that investigation, to pin it specifically on Snyder, but there was a lot of suspicion that he had been involved. If you read the report, I have some quotes, I'm not going to read them, they're very long. They believe that he knew full well what was going on, and it was sort of willful ignorance that stopped him from doing anything about it. And so and I'm not going to make a prediction, but one of my hopes coming out of this is that this won't stay with just 3 relatively low-level people getting these charges. And especially when you look at some of these possible sentences that they could get off of individual charges. I mean, this adds up to potentially dozens of years. Now, we've seen people who are given plea bargains possibly. You know, you don't want to go to jail for 20 years. If you flip and we're able to get Snyder, then that would be a nice little result from this. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that would be a great thing to happen.
One more thing that's convenient. The Michigan Attorney General Bill Schuette is the one who made these decisions. Another high-level Republican in government in Michigan, and he decides, nah, the other Republicans at high levels in this same state shouldn't be punished. It should be the low-level employees who are part of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Shades of Bridgegate.